A lot of you may recall back on November 25th, back in our University City Division, our patrol officers responded to a 911 call for service out there concerning what the caller believed to be shots fired in that area. It was in the 68 or the 8600 block of University City Boulevard. When officers arrived out there, they found evidence that would indicate that a shooting did occur, but there was not a victim that was located out on University City Boulevard in that parking lot. A short time later, CMPD had received information from Atrium Health that a victim of a gunshot wound had been transported to University City Hospital. That victim was Nate Eisenhower, 19-year-old young guy who sadly, tragically, regrettably died as a result of those gunshot wounds. He died later that evening, and his killer or killers, sadly are still out there despite some tremendous work by, our homicide unit detectives, our patrol officers, our partners in the criminal justice system. His killer's still out there, and that's what brings us here this morning. Got an interesting offline conversation with a reporter this morning, and she says, oh, I remember this case. This was the 100th homicide for 2019, and I politely corrected her and said, no, this was Nate Eisenhower. This was a 19-year-old young guy who was senselessly taken from us far too early, or probably something pretty stupid. To my left, Detective Christian Sinnott. He's with our homicide unit. He's the lead detective in the investigation. He's got some new information. Some things have developed since November that he wants to discuss this morning, has a call to action for the community and some help that we could really use from you folks in the press as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Christian Sinnott.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Members of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Homicide Unit, other specialized units, our patrol officers and crime scene unit have worked tirelessly since November trying to make an arrest in this case and bring closure to Nathaniel's family. Despite all of our efforts, we're still looking for those suspects. During the course of the investigation, we were able to identify a surveillance video of a car that we believe to be traveling with the suspect. The video will be distributed to all of your outlets. In the video, you'll see very distinctive damage to the front passenger door. In addition, the right tail light is burned out. The video was from a gas station inside the Harris Theater parking lot at approximately 9:51 p.m. If anyone has any information concerning this case or recognizes that car, we need you to anonymously call Crime Stoppers tip line at 704-334-1600. We won't ask you for your name, where you live, and we will not ask you to testify in court. There is also a reward up to $5,000 for any information that leads to the arrest in this case. Someone out there knows something. If you do, you need to step up and speak up. Nathaniel's family is with us this morning. They will never have any measure of closure until Nathaniel's killer has been brought to justice. I'd like to introduce Sonny and Sherry, Nathaniel's parents.
Hey, how are y'all? My name is Sonny Eisenhower. I'm a sergeant with the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office. I've been in law enforcement for over 20 years now. My son Nate was murdered here in Charlotte. He was only 19 years old. Nate was he was a fun-loving kid. He lived life to the fullest. He had a great heart. He was loyal to those that he loved the most. He loved sports, football and wrestling. But in his heart of hearts, he was a wrestler. He wrestled a little bit at Pembroke College. And he was taking a break from college to try to figure out some things. But he loved wrestling. And, you know, that was his mindset. He was a tough kid. He was a good wrestler. You know, Nate, like most of us at his age, you know, he loved having a good time. But he wasn't the kid to run wild on the streets, you know. He wasn't out there doing those things. He didn't come from that type of environment. He grew up in the country, you know, 30 minutes, you know, from Charlotte. He liked doing stuff outside. You know, he loved going fishing and just being outdoors. Before Nate passed, he became involved with, you know, some questionable individuals, and that's what led us to where we are today. I'd like to do two things. First, I would like to ask anybody, everybody with any kind of information, regardless of how big or small, to please come forward. Please call Crime Stoppers or you know, contact the police with any piece of information that you have regarding Nate's murder. You know, sometimes you might think the information that you have is not a big deal, but regardless of how small the information is, police, Crime Stoppers, they need to hear it. So please, if you have any information whatsoever, please contact the police or Crime Stoppers. You know, this is about justice. The person that killed Nate will more than likely hurt other people one way or the other. You know, next time it could be you or somebody you care about. If it can happen to us, you know, it can happen to anybody. You know, so, you know, take the time to stand up and do something about it, you know, even if that's just sharing information. You know, we're, you know, not knowing is absolute torture. You know, so please, you know, I'm begging, just somebody say something. Second, I want to talk directly to the person responsible. You know, justice delayed is not justice denied. You need to get right with yourself, because you will face justice in this world or the next. It will come to you. So get right with yourself, get right with God. He's the only one that can save you. And just do the right thing. Be a man and stand up and be accountable for your actions. In closing, I'd like to give our heartfelt thanks to our family and our community and our friends. They've all been there for us and helped us through this terrible time, and we appreciate it. And also thank you to the Charlotte Police for all the work they're doing for Nate. And you know, thanks to everybody else who will be involved after this. God bless. I believe Sherry wants to say some things.
Good morning, guys. My name is Sherry Walker. I'm Nate's mom. Whenever we found out about this press release, Sonny was going to take the lead because he's the lead of this family. But I've had it on my heart, and I have something that I need to say. Nate was very important to many people, but he was very important to me, his dad, his brothers. He has a 4-year-old brother. He just turned 4 on Christmas Eve. And Nate was Brody's world. He's not here because I need to protect his innocence from all of this. Nate, like Sonny's already, Nate gave great tribute to Nate. Nate loved. He would call many times and say, "Hey, Mom, I love you, but I want to talk to my brother." He was supposed to be, along with his brothers, Nate's first football coach. He was supposed to be Brody's wrestling coach. That little boy walks around the house and says, "Hey, my brother told me to bend my knees and hold my hands like this to wrestle." So Nate will never be forgotten. He is still with us in our heart. By profession, I'm an ER nurse. I have held mothers whenever I couldn't save their child, and I have wept with them. My heart breaking. Never did I think I would be on this end of things. So, what I need to say is, the Bible says, and God clearly states, "Thou shalt not kill," Exodus 20:13. And this is directly to the person that took Nate away from us. While you may elude the police, you cannot escape God. Our God is smarter, wiser, and stronger than any evil doing. I pray daily that the Lord lays heavy conviction on the hearts of the person that took Nate away from us. And also the people who knows what happened and who is responsible but will not cooperate with the police. Please know that one way or another you will be brought to justice and answer for what you've done. God is in control and He will hold you accountable. I want to thank everyone, from our friends, all of our family, to the people that we don't know that's been involved in this case. All the hospital staff at Atrium University, Atrium Maine, in the ER, and the trauma ICU team. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Specifically to Atrium University, if it wasn't for your due diligence and your hard work, me and Sonny and our boys and our family wouldn't have had the time that we had with Nate. So thank you. If there's someone out there that has information from dad heart to dad heart, mom to mom, it could be your child. We're not safe in this world. We never know what may happen. So if you know something, please come forward through Crime Stoppers. You don't have to give your name. Thank you guys for everything.
Just to reiterate, up to a $5,000 reward for information leading to an arrest or arrests. In this case, to Sherry's point, don't need to know who you are, where you are, will not have to testify in court. All information kept anonymous. Just for housekeeping, Sonny was the dad, Sonny, Eisenhower, Isenhour, Mom, Sherry, Sheri, Walker, Walker. Any questions before we part company this morning? There's that video that Christian had referenced. It should be in your respective inboxes, if not now, in the not too distant future. Again, we encourage you to push that video. A very distinctive vehicle with very distinctive body damage on that vehicle happened just before 10 o'clock in that Harris Teeter parking lot that had the gas station in it on University City Boulevard. We encourage anyone who may have information with regard to the vehicle, the case, the suspects, to anonymously call that Crime Stoppers tip line.
Are there any further updates on Independence High School from this morning?
Lockdown has been lifted to the best of my knowledge. I just got a briefing just a short time ago. The understanding that I have is early this morning, there was some call that was made with regard to a student at a bus stop who was presenting or displaying a gun, and information. It also indicated that the student may have had an additional gun in the book bag. We naturally immediately responded, got to the school. The bus had already disembarked, went through that school with CMS police. methodically interviewed several dozen people, and several individuals, students detained. It transitioned as the investigation developed into a modified lockdown, which would have allowed students to travel back and forth to classrooms as the investigation continued. Last I heard, the lockdown has been lifted. There's still a law enforcement presence out there that will continue to investigate just to ensure, out of an abundance of caution, that there was nothing awry. Can't say for certain at this point whether this was some kind of hoax, somebody calling in a false call, somebody thought this was a joke. What I can say, and what I can assure you, if it was a joke, there's nobody here that's laughing or thinks it's funny. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of resources, staffing, equipment that was devoted to that situation this morning to ensure that there was nothing that was, any threat to the students or staff. We encourage people, if they do have information like this, like we had heard this morning, naturally to immediately call 911 and say something. So it's just far too premature to tell what the motive of the person that called, if there was anything that was really would have materialized in this. We just haven't been able to determine that at this point.
Can you say what bus stop it was at?
I can circle back with you. I don't know offhand, just by memory. I don't, but we can get that to you for sure.
City Council was discussing CMPD officer vacancies yesterday. Any context for why it's been so hard to recruit and fill that gap?
Yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer to that. I think the chief has outlined a number of it. You know, when you're working in operating in a very competitive economy right now, salary is, competitive, and benefits are competitive, and, let's, face it, I think from a public relations standpoint, the profession's really taken a hit over the last several years, right, wrong, or indifferent. Young people are young, but they're not stupid. They see the writing on the wall, and they see that there could be better opportunities in a competitive workplace and a competitive economy. So there is, a number of things. I don't think there's a simple response or explanation. I can say that, we are working with elected officials, with the city, trying to really get our arms around this. Roughly 180 or so vacancies, and that's real. I mean, that's impactful. It impacts our community, impacts our ability to really, be the guardians that we want to be in this community. It's just no, I guess, miracle, short of a miracle, that, they've been able to pull off the monumental work that officers did in 2019, with activity and arrests and engagement despite that shortfall. It's something that we're really going to have to get our arms around. It's something that smarter people than me are going to have to figure out.
Hey, Rob, regarding Nate's case, do you know any more information about the circumstances or any kind of motive? Was he walking around when this happened? Any new
Are you
information?
talking about the Nate Eisenhower case?
Yeah.
Just loosely, that there were shots fired in that parking lot earlier that evening. He died in the hospital a short time later. I don't know if we're ready at this point to lock into what a motive is. I can tell you, though, that it's critically important that whoever can recognize, has some information on that vehicle that we're releasing, they've got to call Crime Stoppers. To Detective Sinnott's point, they've got to step up, they've got to speak up. It's a very distinctive car with very distinctive damage. I'm not foolish enough to believe that somebody in the community doesn't know who was operating that vehicle that night just before 10 o'clock on November 25th in that Harris Teeter parking lot on University City Boulevard.
It may be too early in the investigation to say, but what was he doing? Was he in the car in the parking lot? Was he meeting people? Are you able to say?
I'm not sure about what his activity was prior to the incident developing. I do know what the outcome was, and it's egregious, and it's senseless, and somebody needs to speak up.
His father mentioned that he was hanging out with the wrong crowd. Was he alluding to the fact that the shooter and Nate maybe knew each other?
I don't know what Mr. Eisenhower was alluding to. He knows his son better than we know his son, but I will say that there's not going to be a stone that's left unturned, and everything's on the table to determine what the circumstances were there.
Do you have any more information about the two homicide victims that were found in the car? It was kind of mysterious, what the motive was or what happened there, how did they end up there?
Too premature on motive. I can say that we are able to confirm that the nature of death was they were shot to death. I know that we weren't able to confirm that Saturday morning when we were out there on the scene. Evidence and examination, review of all the evidence, information that we got indicates that the two were shot to death. It was a passerby who was coming up Atondo Avenue in the early morning hours of Saturday, had saw the car off the road in somewhat of an embankment right on the ridge of the wood line and called 911. We had originally had suspected that it was some kind of vehicle collision or a vehicle that had gone off the road. The weather was a little bit treacherous that morning, if you remember. When officers got out there on the scene, they determined that there was something a lot more sinister than a vehicle collision. 2 young people that have lost their lives. Again, anyone with information with regard to that case is they're urged to call Crime Stoppers.
Do you know if it was like a random targeting, or is that still being
I
investigated?
think it's far too premature to get into the nuances of the case, but critically important that we hear from somebody in the community. These men and women are just working overtime to try to really resolve that and bring some closure to the families of those 2 young people who lost their lives on Saturday morning. Anybody else? Please stand by your inboxes. That video that we referenced should be coming shortly, and follow up with us if you have any other questions. Okay? Appreciate everybody.